Hello, and welcome back to Cozy with Chelsea, a podcast to nourish your mind, body, and soul. I am Chelsea, your host, and today we are going to be talking about becoming her, becoming the version of you that has all of their dreams, wishes, desires, aspirations fulfilled. We're going to talk about getting really clear on what that vision looks like and essentially becoming it and how we're going to get there. So we're going to dive in a little bit. Before I do that, I just want to have a quick note from our sponsor, Brew. If you've listened to the podcast, you've heard me talk about it. It is a supplement that you can use to make hot cocoa. So I do it all the time. I will do a little bit before bed, not right before bed, but I will take the Brew hot cocoa powder and then steam it with almond milk and make like a cozy hot cocoa feel good drink before bed. It helps you sleep, and especially for my sensitive people out there, my anxious people, my HSPs, if you sometimes need just a little bit extra help with going to bed and getting a good night's sleep, I personally would recommend Brew. So if you want, you can go to their website and use my code Cozy with Chelsea. You will get 15% off whatever you purchase, and I'll put that information in the show notes. Okay, back to the episode. A lot of my work revolves around this, and you've probably seen stuff on, maybe you've seen stuff about becoming her or becoming the ideal version of you. And sometimes this can sound kind of fantastical, and we're talking about manifesting and quantum leaping. And then sometimes there's more grounded conversations around it, right? Like if you want to achieve this goal, you take these steps to get it done. There's all different kind of ways that you can think about this. And I think there's a lot of information to take in. And if we can use a little bit of discernment, a little bit of nuance, and take what resonates with you, leave what doesn't, that's what I tell everybody, we can talk about really the idea of it, which is, okay, I have this vision of what I want to look like, or how I want to feel, or what I want my career to be, or what I want my family life to look like, or what I want my whole entire life to look like. Great. We all have things that we wish for and desire and aspire to be, have, feel. But the key here is kind of having a little bit of a plan, right? Like identifying, getting very clear on what that vision is. And there's a certain way to do this. And then becoming it through your actions, your daily actions, and having the version of you right now match up and meet the version of you that you're envisioning. And I also want to kind of just touch on how I think a piece here is like we look at TikTok or we look at Instagram or we look at Pinterest and we see some perfectly curated life and we think, wow, why isn't my life like that? You know, there's a piece of that here. And I think if we can kind of separate, okay, who do you genuinely want to be versus who do you think you're supposed to be or who you should be, right? So if we can get really clear on who you genuinely want to become, what you genuinely want your life to feel like, realistically on a day-to-day basis, if we can get a little bit clear on that, then we can map the distance, right? So initially what I will do, especially when working with clients, is get a clear picture, clear vision of what we want, what we're working towards. So this is going to vary person to person. There might be certain areas of your life that you want to hone in a little bit more than others. Maybe it's that you want, your dream partner, your soulmate. Maybe you want your dream career. Maybe you want to look and feel confident in your body, in your style, in your appearance. There's so many different areas here, and maybe it's all of them. Maybe you have a lot of goals. But I think there's something interesting here. Sometimes we have such a detailed, specific vision of what we want our life to look like. So it's like, I want to live in this exact area of town, or maybe it's like, I want to live on this exact street, or I want to work in this exact industry and have this exact role, or I want my partner to be this tall or look this way or have this job. And instead of having those specifics, if we can focus more on the way that you want to feel and allow for a little bit more space, a little bit more openness, because what's funny with something like manifesting or trying to become someone else is that you actually might not even know how good it can get. You might have an idea of what you think the best possible outcome is, but the wonderful, wonderful thing about this world is that there are endless, an infinite amount of possibilities. And it could get even better than anything you can think of right now. So instead of getting really, really, really specific on the exact outcome we want, what we can do instead is focus on the way that we want to feel. For example, let's say you have a career, right? You want a corporate job in finance. I don't know if anyone is going to resonate with that on this podcast, but let's say that's the case. Okay. And you know what? We can actually use the outcome you're looking for as an indicator. What do you think this specific outcome is going to bring you? What are the feelings that you're looking for? Let's focus on that instead. If you want to feel, let's say you want a lot of wealth, okay? Which is totally valid. We all live in a world. There are things that cost money. We have material needs. But if we want wealth, what is the feeling that wealth brings you? Is it safety? Is it security? Is it stability? Is it freedom? If we can focus more on these emotions instead of the specific outcome, then we can be open to the possibilities that will also bring us those feelings. If you are looking for a partner that's this tall and looks this way and has this job, what feeling is that person bringing you? Or what feelings are you wanting to experience in a relationship? Are you also wanting to feel safe? Safety comes up so often in the work that I do. And it also came up personally in my life over and over and over again. But oftentimes that feeling comes up. You want to feel safe. You want to feel safe with your partner. You want to feel valued. You want to feel loved. You want to feel supported. You want to feel like you can be honest with them. You want transparency. Instead of the specifics, I think you're getting the idea here, is focus more on the feelings that you want to bring into your desired life to become her. And then I think a big thing here is mapping the distance, like I said before. So oftentimes when we want something, we want to achieve something, it's often like a 180 from our lives or a super like unattainable goal. It's like in 3 weeks, I want to have a 6-pack. And I think what is really helpful here is instead of creating or thinking of it as creating an entirely new identity, we just simply focus on reducing the gap between your current habits and your desired life. And we do this through, one, getting clear, identifying, but then also behavior change. And this happens in typically smaller steps, also what I work through in my coaching. So let's say that you want to have peace in your life. That comes up a lot too. You want to feel calm. Maybe you're super stressed out at work or family life is stressing you out and every day your nervous system is just out of whack and you're reacting quickly. Okay, so we want to feel peace. We want to feel calm. What does this version of you look like? What does this calm, peaceful version of you look like? And what are you doing at 8 a.m. on a Tuesday? Because so often we have this dream, this desire, and it feels unreachable, unattainable. So instead, if we can look at it as, here are the feelings I'm looking for. What does this version of me do on a Tuesday? And if we can focus in on those little small incremental changes, we're mapping the distance. You're getting to that desired place in an attainable way. So a way to make this a little bit more grounded and something that you could actually practice this week, for example, what I would recommend is pick one area of your life that you have a desired outcome in. So if that is relationships, you want more deep friendships in your life, or you want a partner that you're looking for. If we could focus on relationships, then we're going to ask, okay, how do I want to feel and what do I want my life to look like? So I want to feel safe, supported, and in connection with my community. So the version of me that feels safe, supported, and in connection with my community, what is she doing over the next week that aligns with that desired outcome? So an example could be getting on Bumble BFF and setting up a friend date for the week. So one friend date for the week. It could also be going on an online dating app and going on a date, one date for the week. It could be that you see yourself with a friend you haven't connected with in a while, reaching out to her and scheduling a coffee date for Sunday morning. Whatever it is, whatever that attainable goal is for that 1 week that matches up with your desired reality, that's accomplishable, achievable. Once you do that, you literally have become that version of you. You are, when you're on this friend date or a romantic date or connecting with an old friend, you are now feeling supported and in connection with your community. So now that we have an idea of what it looks like to create a blueprint and start implementing some of those smaller changes to match up with your desired reality, I want to talk about the second part here, which is the sculpting of the process, the messy middle. This is where we have like a little bit of resistance and a little bit more work involved. And I think something interesting here is that growth is addition, of course, but it also often looks like subtraction. So if we can also take a look at, okay, what are we currently doing that doesn't align with the desired version of myself? And things like this often look like people pleasing, over committing. It could be using your busyness to prove that you're worthy. It could be waiting. Oh my God, this is the biggest one. Waiting until you actually feel ready to do something. So I think if you could ask yourself, what am I doing that I think is making me feel safe when in reality, it's actually keeping me stuck? So if we go back to this goal of, you wanting to feel in connection with your community and have friendships that are fulfilling and deep and satisfying, what you might find is that you're actually showing up in the wrong places. You might have a friend that you've known forever and you keep saying yes to hanging out with them, but every time that you do, it just doesn't feel right and you don't feel good after. So you think you're like searching for something when in reality, it's keeping you stuck and preventing you from progressing into your desired outcome. So if you could just take a look and see what that is for you, if this version of me is confident and in connection with community and has deep, fulfilling friendships, what am I doing right now that's not providing that? And stop doing it. I don't mean to be so black and white about it, but it's true here because you're not getting what you want from the things that you're currently doing. And not only are you not getting what you want, you're reducing the amount of space for that new version of you. So if you stop saying yes to people who are ultimately disappointing you and instead open up time, space, energy for something else to come into your life, that is the subtraction that I'm talking about. Now, when we start this subtraction process or this sculpting process, it is very common that you are going to feel discomfort. And I want you to know that discomfort is not a sign that you're off track. In fact, it's the opposite. It's a sign that you're on track, and it can be a little bit confusing. And often discomfort is really just your brain protecting the familiar. For example, if we're working on health or we want to become fit, but your go-to is after a stressful day, you have ice cream or whatever it is. Switching those patterns, those ingrained neural pathways, it's going to be uncomfortable. You might have some emotions come up. What can be very common is an emotion can come up and it can derail your entire day. And honestly, I could do an entire other podcast on just this. Maybe I will. Or actually, I did one recently, which was focused on anxiety, but it can apply to any emotion. So when you're going through this process and an emotion comes up, I just want you to know that emotions, if we don't feed it with a story, they actually typically can go away within 90 seconds. So if you can just think about this as you're going through these changes, remember to not feed your emotion with the typical story or the typical pattern. You want to name the emotion, do some breath work, that's what I do, and then let it flow through you and move on with your day. That is a very simplified version of the process, but it's true. You are not your emotions, and you are not even your thoughts. They are just things that flow through you and pass out of you. So if something comes up, just try to remember that and allow it to just be and exist and not have it define your entire being. Now, another trap that we can fall into here is the perfection trap when we are working on changing a part of our life to reach our desired outcome. So I want to talk about ways that you can make becoming her inevitable, because motivation is unreliable. I hear so often, well, I just don't have the motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Motivation is never 100% going to be with you, which is why I love the idea of having a system in place in order to make it work. Now, a big key here is reducing decision fatigue. Because what we'll find sometimes is there are so many options or things that we could do and we don't know which one to pick. So if you can actually choose some non-negotiables every single week, and they can change week to week, but non-negotiables that are highly achievable and that you know you will do. And if that means starting off small, it means starting off small. So maybe it looks like, okay, I'm going on a 10-minute walk in the morning. Period. End of sentence. And if you end up going longer, great. That's usually what happens. But the non-negotiable is a 10-minute walk in the morning. It could be that your phone stays out of the bed. If this new desired version of you is someone who sleeps, who has good sleep, sleeps well, then it's okay. The phone is not going to bed with me. I'm putting it in a different room and I will get it when I wake up. So there's no scrolling before bed. There's no scrolling in the morning. It could be that you have one coffee date a week. It could be, okay, every morning I'm eating protein. Whatever it is, that one thing that you can start to incorporate, start there, and then you can continue to add on to it. And then you also want to make this like stupid easy, okay? You want to, I think something here too is like, you will know what's going to prevent you from doing something. So if your goal is, okay, I'm going to be fit in 4 weeks and I'm going to do an hour workout every single morning, and you're trying to get there from doing absolutely nothing, like, let's be realistic here. So we can have the non-negotiable 10-minute walk. And then if you know what usually happens in the morning is you wake up a little bit late, you snooze, you don't have enough time to even get an outfit on. Okay, so what are we going to put in place to prevent that from happening? And like one of the easiest things you can do here is put your workout clothes out the night before. Just put them on your sink, on your counter, on your dresser, wherever it is that you're going to see it. It's already there, laying for you, ready to go. You just put them on, you go for a 10-minute walk. We want to put things into place that are achievable. And then I also think here to really have accountability, but have it without shame. A lot of times people will be like, well, I was going to eat healthy meals for every single meal, but I ate bad a few times this week. What's more important here is tracking consistency over perfection. So in the beginning, when you're adding in these things to become this desired version of you, if you go on one walk and before you didn't go on any, that's a win. If you've added protein into your meals 3 times a week instead of 7, that's a win. If you had 3 interviews and you didn't have anything before, that is a win. So we really need to celebrate the consistency and continue habit stacking, adding on to it, rather than expecting perfection. And when you do this without shame, notice the wins, you will continue to add on to them. So now that we've talked about blueprinting and how to overcome some of that resistance, I want to talk about the third piece here, which is sustaining this, right? Curating and sustaining your environment so that we get to the point where you line up with that desired version of you. I wanted to think of this in a way of curating your gallery, but your gallery is your environment and your inputs. And ask yourself, is my environment helping or draining me? So what we're doing is taking kind of like an audit of our lives, and then we can change our inputs before we're trying to simply just change our willpower. You can think about this in terms of the people around you. Are you feeling expanded? Are they expanding you, or are they exhausting you? And if we can just choose to spend our time appropriately, this is just one example, right? If we kind of remove those, or at least limit those who are exhausting us and increase those who expand us, then you can imagine how changing this input changes your environment as a whole, and therefore increases your capacity to become this version of you. If the people around you are supporting you, loving you, expanding you, if you have those feelings, imagine what this version of you would have the space-time energy for. And if we can think about the home, so much of it goes back to like your surroundings, and is it clean? Is it organized? Or do you have clutter everywhere? All of these inputs, you might not even realize it, but they are affecting your daily energy to achieve what you want to achieve. If you are waking up and there's clothes everywhere and you haven't done the laundry and there's stuff all over your shower and your sink is dirty, what are those inputs, those sensory inputs doing to your energy levels? I actually just did this a week ago where my entire downstairs, I still have the upstairs to do, but my entire downstairs completely decluttered and rearranged and decorated in a different way. And I had like some books that I put on a dresser before. There was a bunch of just random knickknacks, and I changed it to coffee table books essentially. And then I had a plant. I repotted some plants that needed to be repotted. I cleaned everything. It was like sparkling and beautiful, and immediately I felt better because now I'm living in an environment that matches the version of me that I want to be, because I want to feel safe. I want to feel cozy, obviously. I want to feel productive, successful. And when my house looks that way, I in turn feel that way. One of the biggest things also is living a life with integrity. And what that means is building your self-trust so that you trust yourself to become this version of you. And I always say that self-trust and self-worth comes from keeping promises that you make to yourself. And if we can make those promises achievable, that is how you're going to continue to build that self-trust and self-worth. So again, like instead of I'm going to journal for 2 hours every morning, it's I'm journaling for 5 minutes, and you journal for 5 minutes, and then you kept your promise to yourself. And if we can keep doing this over and over and over again, you start to realize consciously, subconsciously, oh, I keep the promises I make to myself. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it, and I'm the better for it. Confidence is not a feeling that you wait for. There is never a moment in my life where I've been like, okay, I'm officially ready. I'm ready for this new version of me. It just hasn't happened that way. What I have experienced is that confidence is a result that you earn through your actions, thoughts, behaviors, and beliefs. If I were to give you some homework from today's episode, I would say to start with one area of your life that you have a desired outcome, and then get very clear on your vision and the ways that you feel in that desired outcome. And then identify what we need to subtract to allow for more space, time, energy. And then with all of that space, time, and energy, what are we going to add in that is small, that is achievable, that we can build on? And then how are we going to make and keep those promises to ourselves so that you build the self-trust and self-worth and confidence, and then you become her. All right, I always like to end the episode with what is making me cozy this week. And actually, right after I record this episode, we are having like a St. Patrick's Day dinner with my husband and his family. So we're making corned beef and cabbage, which I love. I've heard some people say they don't like it. I'm all about it. Sign me up for corned beef and cabbage. So I'm really excited for that. And the weather has been great here. It's been getting warmer and I've been able to sit outside. So I might be eating my corned beef and cabbage outside in the backyard. And you know what? I'm just going to add to this that since it's springtime, I've been potting some plants. There are free classes here in the community and they teach you about planting native plants because I live in the desert and not much grows here. Well, I shouldn't say not much, but you have to be really intentional about what you plant here. There are certain things that do well. And so after I went to this free class while I was connecting in the community, I went and got some plants and planted them. And I got some roses, which actually do very well in the desert, if you didn't know that. And some lantana, I think that's how you say it, flowers. So I've always wanted flowers in my desert home and felt like they would always die. And guess what? You just need to get the ones that do well in the environment you're in. Oh my God, the environment you're in. All right, well, that's what I have for you this week. I hope that this is helpful. And if you ever need a little bit of assistance on becoming her, I can absolutely help you with that. My links are in the bio. Have a great week. Stay cozy. Talk to you next week. Bye.